Okay, so like I said, hi, this is Nancy at Sipping and Painting Hampden, and we're going to paint this lovely painting called, it's called Copper, Colorado, and I'll tell you why. We were looking for something that wasn't the typical red with the typical yellow sun. We wanted something a little bit edgier and a little more modern, and so this is what we came up with, and we're going to be mixing colors to approximate this kind of more natural look of wood and maybe some burned wood and kind of sort of the color copper and silver, although we don't have copper and silver. We're just going to try to approximate that with our paints, and you'll be surprised. They'll look cool. And so the paints I'm going to be using today are just basic primary colors, blue, red, and yellow. And then we also have black and white. Super easy. And then I have a few different brushes. I'm going to be using a large, a medium, and a small. But then I also have a teeny tiny one for details if I need that. If you only have, basically just need a large, medium, and small, these two are both small. One's just a little smaller than the other. But those are it. We try to keep things really basic around here so that everyone can paint easily. You don't have to have all kinds of equipment and supplies to get started. So we will need some water. I have it in a nasty old mason jar. You can, about 6 ounces or so in either in a cup or a container, that works. And make sure you have your apron on because acrylic paints are permanent. And I also have a stack of napkins. When I clean my brushes, I'm going to use the water a lot and try to let the water do the work so the napkins don't have to. And I'll show you how to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up, oh, here's one more thing that we will need. You can get it now or get it on a break. What you'll need is a plate. And it could be a paper plate from takeout, or it could be a dinner plate from your house. If you don't have a plate, I can teach you how. Like if you're sitting out in the field somewhere, I can show you how to do it without a plate. But I'm thinking that you guys are probably at home. You probably have a plate handy. So if you can find a plate, that's going to make it a lot easier for you. This is not a gigantic plate. This is like a regular size paper plate. So if you have one of those, it'll be easier, okay, for you. All right, cool. All right. But not to fear. If you don't have one, we'll still make it work. All right. So someone asked if they should take their paints out of the containers, put them on the plate. You don't have to do that. What we can do is you can just mix on your plate. We're going to be mixing brown and rust and gray. And to do that, you can just mix those colors on your plate and just pick up a little from each color in the containers. That'll be fine. Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my big brush and I'm going to put a bunch of water on my canvas. And I'm doing that because Denver is really dry. And our paints will dry out thin quickly here if we don't do this. In other parts of the country or in other countries where it's more humid, you probably don't need to do this. But in Denver, it's real dry, so we need to do this. So I'm just adding a little water all over to my canvas. And that's going to help us when the paint is on there. It'll just move around a little more smoothly if the canvas isn't super dry. Now my canvas and my brushes are a little bit different than yours if you're using the kit. My canvas is a little bit bigger, but that's so that you can see it. That's why a really huge dinner plate won't work. If you have a gigantic dinner plate or a charger, don't do that. Just a paper plate. And since your canvases are a little smaller, you could even use like the happy birthday party paper plates or a saucer. That would also work. Whatever size you have, that's how big it'll be. Is anyone celebrating anything tonight?
Today is actually my 31st birthday.
Yay! happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Bridget.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy
Cheers.
birthday.
Let's all give a toast to Bridget and her 31st birthday. I've celebrated
Cheers,
my
Bridget.
31st birthday many
Thank
times. Cheers. I hope your 32nd year is a lot better than this past year.
It wasn't too bad for me.
Good. Well, that's exciting. Here's the birthday toast for you. May the days of your life be as bright as a spring sunbeam and your nights be as dazzling as a shooting star.
Well, thank you.
Sincerely, that was nice.
All right, so we're gonna end up doing a lot of mixing for this painting. Some paintings more than others. This one requires a lot of mixing, but it's gonna be fun. We're gonna learn a lot. So the most important thing that you need to remember is that brown, you don't need brown paint. Brown is made up of 3 colors. It's made up of yellow plus red plus blue. We're not going to mix all of our colors together. We're just going to take a little bit at a time. Like here's a little bit of red. I'll put that on my plate. And then I'm going to go in from the side so I don't contaminate the whole thing. I'll take a little bit of yellow. Then I'll take a little bit of blue. And then I'm going to swirl them together and see what I get. Now, usually that creates a very dark brown. And blue is a more powerful pigment than the other 2. And so right now it's so dark, it almost looks black. So I'm going to pick up a little more red. You might need more red.
What were the 3 colors again for brown?
Yep. Red plus blue plus yellow, the 3 primary colors. You're going to know them inside out by the end of this painting. And so blue is a really powerful color. And since it's so powerful, it's really staining this color almost black. In fact, mine looks black. So that just tells you how powerful blue can be. But the way we know what we really have is, I'm going to carefully, I'm wiping all the paint off my brush. I'm going to come in and I'm going to take a little white and mix it in. And that way I can really see what I have. Man, I've got a real gray here. I got to do some work. Wondering if I accidentally picked up black. I might have. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to make a pile of brown first, but just a little bit. Don't overmix. Don't use all your paint because we're going to make several different shades of it. But just keep going until you add more yellow, more red, whatever it is that you need until you get something, and then a little white, right, so you can see it, until you get something that resembles brown. Well, it will be brown. Usually when we're painting with a lot of bright colors, if you overmix your colors, you accidentally get brown, but now we're deliberately trying to get brown.
So Nancy, you said we're going for a dark brown?
We're gonna, actually, we wanna make 3 different shades. We wanna make a light, a medium, and a dark. So this is my first pile, just so I can learn how to do it. And then I'm going to mix 2 more. I want a light, a medium, and a brown. Sorry, a light, a medium, and a dark brown.
Okay.
And again, just do a little of each. Don't use all your paint. So I'm gonna, just go one like pinto bean at a time when I pick up these colors. And your browns are gonna look different than my browns, and that's okay. It's just like wood, right? If you went to a hardware store and, went to the lumber, every piece of wood you pick up going to be a little bit different. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do here. As long as we get 3 different shades of brown, we're good to go. And I'm finding that I need quite a bit more red than blue for sure. But, it's just in how you mix it. If yours looks green, then you need more red. If yours looks purple, then you need more yellow. And it might be that our 3 browns just are different browns, but not necessarily one lighter or darker than the other. We can work with that.
That's the wrong.
So the reason why those 3 together make brown is that they're the 3 primary colors. And so I used to, for the longest time, I could never remember which colors make brown. I don't remember. And then somebody told me, think Christmas brown. And I was like, what does that mean? And they said, if you mix red and green together, you always get brown. So far I've got 2 different browns. One's real dark, one's lighter. I'm gonna clean up my brush a little bit and I'm gonna start with a new pile. I just need 3 different browns. But try to save some of your other colors because you might need it later. Don't use all your color, that's the point. And we don't need a lot of each one. Now you might ask, why didn't you just give us 3 different little tubs of brown? Well, because that wouldn't be much fun with it. This way you get to learn about paint. That's not me guzzling alcohol. That's me cleaning my brush, by the way. Someone last night, when I was painting with someone last night, they heard me swishing my water around. They're like, I hope that's not you drinking all of that.
Nancy, we wouldn't be upset.
Oh, that's
If one looks purple, Nancy, what color should I add to it?
If it's purple, you need to add yellow.
Okay.
So to my lightest one, I'm going to add a little bit more white, just so that I have 3 distinct shades. One's light, one's medium, one's dark. And to my darkest one, I might even add a little more blue to make it even darker. Blue will darken things up in a hurry.
These are the exact same. I'll add white to it to make it lighter. Well, at least I could know I could make a brown. Very good. All right, I think I have 3 done. Is there like
If
more
it's-
than one group?
Oh,
The
sorry.
brown-
If it's green, which color do I add?
If it's green, then you have a lot of blue and yellow in it, and you need more red.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem.
I was just gonna need those. You got it. Yeah.
So hopefully you're starting to get something that's like milk chocolate, Hershey's chocolate and cocoa, or, you know, whatever, something like that. Hopefully. Remember, we don't need a lot of each one.
Thank you. It's like a taupe.
So err on the side of too
Yeah,
little.
I like that. I'm gonna do that.
You can always make more. Err on the side of too little than too much. I want to show you this up close so you can see. This brown has a little more yellow in it. You can kind of see that. It's a little more like a golden brown, like the oak floors in your house when you were growing up, if you're a millennial, right? Or a Gen Xer. And then this brown is more like a mocha, kind of like my kitchen is now. And that one's a little more gray brown. So there's just different, as long as we have a few different types of brown, we can make this look like wood. And see, I did still leave some of my paint. I didn't use all of it because I might need to remix some later. So I just want to make sure I didn't use all my paint. The cool thing about this painting is, given that it's supposed to look like beat up wood and the sea is beat up and the city skyline is drippy, if yours, you know, doesn't turn out great, it'll look totally deliberate. So good job picking out the painting, Sam. However ours turn out,
Thank you.
we're
I
gonna
was
look
hoping it
like,
would, yeah, I was hoping it'd be a little bit easier.
Everyone will be a
Because I
genius.
myself cannot paint.
You're going to surprise yourself. I was looking online at Milo Apartments. They're beautiful.
Thank you. We're pretty new. We're about a year old now at this point.
Nice. You guys are, we've done a lot of private classes for Mental Health Center of Denver. And I think you guys are
Okay.
just right down there in that neighborhood, right? Where the University of Colorado Health the hospital used to be, right? Around there?
Exactly.
Nice.
Yes, ma'am. Nancy, can I use your opinion?
Of course.
I'm looking like I have two of almost the same color.
Okay.
These two.
So hold on
So-
1 second. I'm going to go over. I can't really see well on where I'm at, so I'm going to go to the
Okay.
computer.
Okay.
Can you hold those up for me again, Sam?
There you go.
Okay, so that looks good. You might want to make one of them a little more brown,
Okay.
just a little darker. You can add some blue and see if it'll just be a darker brown to one of them.
Okay. Okay.
What we're going for is like, it'd be great if one was kind of sort of like a caramel, and one kind of
Okay.
sort of like milk chocolate, and one kind of sort of like Hershey's chocolate.
Okay.
Just like 3 different light, medium, and dark.
Okay. I will keep trying.
Does anyone else want to show me theirs and I can see if it looks, you know, if you're questioning it? Fantastic. Looks great, Brielle.
Thank you.
Those are good.
How's everyone else doing? Danae, have you painted with us before?
Hi, Nancy. Yes, I have. I'm actually over at Theo, so we are sister communities here.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, I know a Danae Hill. She's painted with us. Hi, Danae.
Yes, hi.
Nancy, can I check mine as well?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry, let me flip my camera.
looks good. Looks good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Brad and Bruce, are things turning out okay? Nice.
Colors are looking good.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and show you what we're going to do with the first brown. Okay, so if you would go ahead and mute, I'm going to go ahead and show you the first step. So I'm going to take my biggest flat brush. I'm going to make sure that I can hear a little feedback. I'm going to make sure it's not my computer, but if you are unmuted, go ahead and mute if you would. Yep, it was me. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pick up some water on my biggest brush. Oh man, look how dirty my water is already. But who cares? We're gonna make wood on this, right? So not to worry. Okay, I'm gonna pick up my big brush and I'm gonna take my lightest brown and I'm gonna streak it on right to left, horizontally. And so if your lightest brown is a lot darker than this, just add a little water and put it on a little thinner. If it drips, it's too thin. But if it's thin but not drippy, perfect. And we're going to cover it with horizontal strokes back and forth. It's really important to get these horizontal strokes because that's the goes in the direction of the wood grain. If I were to do this, I wouldn't have wood. I would have, I don't know what that is. Yeah, I don't even want to think about what that is, right? If you have kids, yeah. Anyway, so wood grain. We're going for wood grain, back and forth. And this will take a while. And if it's feeling like your brush is not moving smoothly, just put a drop of water on your brush, not too much, you don't want it drippy. But if you put a drop of water on your brush, it just helps smooth it a little. Just makes it smear on a little bit easier. We're not going for real thick caked on. We're just going for more like a stain on this canvas. So thin paint is good. Unless it's drippy, in which case it needs to be a little thicker. And I can see where I didn't mix my paint perfectly, and that's even giving it more character. So that's not a bad thing. This reminds me of like a blonde oak. And every now and then I'm just picking up a drop of water. It's like I'm staining my deck. And if you run out of your light color, just pick up a drop of water and see if you can pull it from another area. Because the lighter we can put this on, the faster it will dry. And having a little bit of canvas showing through, just a little bit, is kind of cool. It gives it texture. So a thin coat is better than a really thick coat. Those little areas where the canvas is peeking through kind of just make it look like this wood is worn. And with your dirty brush or any of that light color you have left over, you can paint the sides of the canvas like this. And also the tops and the bottom. And when you do that, paint the sides and the tops and the bottom, that creates a gallery wrap. It looks a little more modern that way. And then you don't have to buy a frame, and that'll save you lots of money. Frames are expensive. After I put that on, I just smooth it again. I learned if you paint the bottom, two sides, and then paint the bottom, you can still hold on to the third side and not get too much paint on your hands. But if you paint the two sides and the top and then pick up the bottom, well, you got paint everywhere, but that's all right. Just make sure you don't put it on your computer or something really valuable. Acrylic paint will wash off when it's wet. It'll wash with soap and water, but then once it dries, it's on there for good. You can always try a little rubbing alcohol on something to get it off after it dries. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. If I get it on my clothes, I just rub it into, all my clothes have it. I rub a dish soap on it and then wash it as soon as I can in the hottest water that item will allow. So far we're looking a little bit like we've got some wood happening here on our canvas. Remember, horizontal, okay? So I just want to let you know how to know if your painting is wet or dry. If you pick it up and you move it around in the light and you see a shimmer on it, it's wet. Mine is mostly dry, but I see a little bit of shimmer. And actually, on this particular painting, it doesn't matter if it's even wet when I paint over it, no big deal. But that's how you know. Another way that you know is if you put your hand on the back of the canvas and it feels a little cooler than other fabric in the room, like on your sofa, you know, try not to get paint everywhere, but in general, it'll feel cool to the touch if it's still wet. The third way is if you pick it up and rub it on the person next to you, if they scream, it was wet. So I don't recommend that way, especially if you're living with people during the entire pandemic. They won't like it. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mix up a little bit of white paint. I'm going to take a little bit of white, just a little bit. How much? I don't know. The size of a pea, a roly-poly bug size, just a tiny bit.
Are you using a new brush or same big one?
Thank you. I'm using a
Okay.
medium brush.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks.
I put my big one in the water, he's soaking in the hot tub.
Okay.
And then I'm going to add to that white a few drops of water because I want this to be thin. I want it to be a thin white. And then I'm going to take just a tiny bit of yellow too, just a tiny bit. How much? Practically none. Like a roly-poly bug. I mean, so little, it's ridiculous. And depending what part of the country, I mean, you may have no idea. I mean, what you're from, you may have no idea what I mean by a roly-poly bug, but just like a tiny, tiny bit. A few.
Potato bug.
Potato bug. Is that what they call them where you are?
Where I'm from, they're potato bugs, but I do know some people say roly-poly.
Where did you grow up?
Pennsylvania.
Huh, I never heard of that. Okay.
I've never heard of either of these.
A sow bug, a pill bug, wood louse. I mean, there's all kinds of names. Those little tiny bugs that roll up.
Okay. I'm like, ugh. Clearly I hate bugs, so I just don't even learn their names.
Okay, so the general idea is just take a tiny bit of white and a few drops of water and an even smaller amount of yellow. Basically what I'm going for is this kind of like super, super pale, watery, little bit of mess, right? And all I want to do is I want to streak on some, with the lightest touch, like Bob Ross used to say, 2 hairs and some air. We're going to be doing a lot of streaking in our painting, not outside, just streaking a little bit and starting way at the side. And I'm barely touching the canvas. Just barely, barely. If it's too yellow, it's going to look funny. I just basically wanted some lighter areas. I don't want anything. If you're in IT or finance or you schedule people, you will have a tendency, or if you're an engineer or an accountant, someone who's very detailed, you will have a tendency to want to blend away all your streaks. But when you're painting wood, you want lots of streaks because that looks like wood that's old. It starts to warp. And it has streaks in it. So we want to make sure there's streaks in our painting. So after I put a little bit of that on, I cleaned my big brush. I'm going to dab the water on a napkin, and I'm going to go and just deliberately go back and forth and mess it up a bit. I don't want it all to blend completely into my brown. I'm not going for a new shade of brown. I'm just going for some lighter areas to break up what I already had. So I put a little paint on and now I'm kind of messing it up with a clean brush and a couple drops of water. Now that's just adding some highlights, and highlights in wood usually mean that distressed wood pops up a little bit because it's warped a bit. So anytime you need more water, just dip your brush in, get 1 or 2 drops of water, and we just want to smooth that away. We don't want anyone to come up to it and go, why are there yellow stripes in your painting, right? Or white, whatever you made. You just want to just knock those down with a little bit of water while they're still wet. And I'm being pretty aggressive with this scrubbing them out thing. Now, when I put them on, it was a light touch, and now I'm using a really heavy touch. But do you see by having lighter areas, it's starting to look like wood grain a bit, like beat up wood? That's what we're going for. Distressed areas. And those are the highlights of our distressed wood. Now the colors are a little more similar, you can see. And you can put in as many or as few as you think you need. If your original brown was really dark, you might need to put in more, but don't cover the whole canvas. We're going for streaks. And if you need a little bit more, step back. I always recommend step back 5-10 feet away. If you've ever seen a Monet or a Van Gogh painting up close, they're terrible. They look horrible. But from 5 to 10 feet away, they look amazing. And that's deliberate. The proper viewing distance for your painting is going to be 5 or 10 feet away, not right up close. If you go to a museum and you put your nose in a painting this close, the way we're painting it, the guard would get really nervous. You're supposed to step back. Don't put on so much that you blend away your brown. You want to keep it streaky. Keep it streaky. Right now I'm just painting with water, just smoothing any hard overly yellow lines. I'll show you that up close. See the streaks? I didn't blend them away. I just added another layer. That's how we're making old beat up wood. That actually looks like my cutting board at home now. But we're not done trying to make it look like wood. We need some knots and some crevices, and that's what we'll do next. So we have a base color and we have highlights, but what we don't have are any deep crevices. So we're gonna add those. And we can do them with either a medium brush or a small brush, it doesn't really matter. But here's where your medium brown come in. And if you can't tell which one's more medium, it doesn't really matter. If they're almost the same, just take a little bit of brown on your brush. And you don't want any clumps. We're just coating the bristles on a flat brush, or you can use a small pointy round brush. Either one will work, but if you use a flat brush, chisel off any lumps and we'll just paint with it sideways. So what I'm gonna do to make crevices is, I know this is gonna surprise you, we're gonna make streaks coming across. And the key to doing this is that make them different lengths and don't make them equidistant. So if you're an engineer, you'll know what that means, right? But don't make them the same distance apart. You want to make some closer together than others. Some right up next to each other, and some really far apart from each other. And these are those deep grooves in that show up in wood that's worn. And I'm going to come in from both sides. And some can go all the way across, but my canvas is pretty big, so it's hard for me to go all the way across in a fairly straight line. So if I do some just from one side and pull them past the middle, that'll work too. And these are those deep crevices that form. A cutting board is the best example I have. I have an old cutting board that my brother made for me when he was in middle school. And I'm really old, so you can imagine how old this cutting board is. And every year I just oil it or put wax on it, and it's lasted like decades. So yeah, but it's pretty beat up. It does have deep grooves in it. And we're just painting in those deep grooves thinly. So I use the side of a medium brush, but you could also use a pointy small brush. It works just the same. That's even easier, actually, a pointy small brush. I'm just going to make sure that none of these grooves, like that they're not lined up, you know, like don't put them every half an inch all the way up, you know, make them a little more random. We didn't use a lot of paint for that. That's why I was telling you, don't mix too much paint. This painting is mostly background, obviously. I'm going to show you one more thing, okay? So somewhere on your painting, and it doesn't matter where, probably not where the C is going to be because you won't see it. I'm going to take this pointy little brush and I'm going to go up from a line, make an arch, and come back down to the line. I'm going to start at this end again. I'm going to come down from the line. I'm going to go up and I'm going to pull up to the line. It looks like there's an eyeball. And the reason for that is that wood does have knots. And so inside that knot, I'm going to pick that darkest brown up. All right, so Sarah, it's got to go. Let me just tell you, we will be putting this on YouTube. And so if anyone has to go, you can just check it on YouTube. I'll probably have it up tomorrow and you can just finish there. But anyway, I'm just going to fill in that knot with my darker brown. And I might put a few of those, but if I do, I'm going to make sure that they're different sizes, some longer and thinner than that one I just did. See that? Right there? Those are little wood knots. And it just makes your wood look like it's a little more real. So here's one. I'm going to do this one real small and thin. It's like I'm painting an eye with really long eyeliner on the side, and then just fill it in. Here's a gigantic one. This painter made theirs a little bit more loose. So she didn't even fill it in. She just went with it. I think filled in looks a little realistic, but you know, do whatever you think looks good. But just keep them on that horizontal line. That one was a little too much for me, so I'm going to streak it in a little more. That's the beauty of these streaks, is if you don't like something, just put something, we've already done over it. It'll disappear. All right, I'm going to pick up the pace a bit. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit more of that brown paint, just a little bit of that medium brown paint. I'm going to add a few drops of water. So it's really thin, really thin. I want it really, really thin, like ink. And then I'm going to knock it off my medium brush, just so I don't have any clumps. I just have a little bit of really, really thin brown paint. And then anywhere that you want to add some thicker lines, go ahead and just pull them across. And I'm using the fat side of my medium brush now. See that? Not the thin side, the fat side. And I'm just making a few little thicker lines. So this is a lot of fussing over wood, but I think it's worth it. I think it looks cool. When you know how to paint wood, people are really impressed. So this was the medium brush, my medium brown, and mix it with some water, probably equal parts water. So it's real thin like a stain. And I'm just using that medium brush to put in some thicker lines. So I have thin lines, I have thick lines. And then I think what that's going to do is it's going to give us, that's our finishing touch on our wood. We have knots, we have thin lines, we have thick lines, we have highlights. We're good. Just make sure when you pull them straight across to the best of your ability. So what you should see on your canvas are streaks of many different shades of brown. If you wear makeup, it's like you went into a makeup counter and you just got all the different shades of skin tones because there's so many. And next time you look at wood, you're gonna see it differently. You're gonna look at it and you go, wow, I see all those tones. Light tones, dark tones, mid tones. And that's all we're gonna do on our wood. So let that dry, give it time to dry. Before we go on, do get up and look at your painting from 5 feet away if you haven't already, okay? Seriously, you really need to do that. I looked at mine from 5 feet away and I thought, wow, mine's so much darker than the original. But what I could do is just make a few more lighter stripes in mine. I just added very, very, very thin white paint with a little water. If I just lighten up a few of my little stripes, I think I'm going to be happier, but I don't want to repaint and I don't want to take any extra time. I just want to keep going. So this is just whitewashing some of the darker stripes and I'll be good to go. It's always important to look at your painting from a few feet away. If it's, my philosophy is if it's 80% good, you're going to like it. Because tomorrow you'll wake up and think it's 95. We're always hardest on ourselves when we paint, always. And just a few drops of super watered down white over my darker areas. Now I'm happier with, and it's a little more tone similar to the first one. All right, so that's it. That's all I'm going to do. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do this C. So hopefully, if you want to cheat and make it easier on yourself, hopefully you've grabbed a dinner plate. Hopefully. That is going to make it a lot easier for you. But if you didn't do that, I can still show you how to do it without a dinner plate. And by dinner plate, I mean a smaller plate, not a bigger one. If you have two sizes, a smaller one. Because if you have a dinner plate, this is going to be easy. All you have to do is hold it. I'm going to do it about 2 inches or 3 inches from the side. On yours, probably 2. And then up and down, but in the center. And then I'm going to draw a dot at 2 o'clock. Now, if you have a big piles of wet paint on there, don't do what I'm doing. Mine are pretty dry. So I'm going to go at 2 o'clock. I'm going to put a dot right there at 4 o'clock. And what I mean by 4 o'clock is if you can imagine this being a clock on the wall, not a digital, of course, but an old-fashioned one. So you put a dot at 2 o'clock, a dot at 4 o'clock, and then you paint the circle around your plate like that. And I'm doing it in white with the tiniest little brush. But I'm not painting a circle between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Not at all. And the reason for that is that's my C. It wouldn't make sense. You can see when I pull this off, my C wouldn't make sense if I had it between 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Now, if that's a little too high, you know, I can always go back into my brown and, you know, smear it in a little bit. See, I just took some off. You wouldn't even know. So that's if you have a dinner plate. If you're a person who said, I am not going to use a dinner plate, I'm going to do it the hard way. No problem. I'll show you how to do it. So take a round brush. And what I mean by round is your ferrule is round. It's not crimped, so it's not flat anywhere. And then this is how you make it if you don't have that plate. I'm going to first do the inner circle. Because if I don't have a plate, I'm going to have to do the inner circle before I can do an outer circle. I'm going to put my brush in the center. Actually, everyone can do this because this is the inside part of your C. And then circle out slowly, 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 slowly. And the reason I start in the center and then circle out slowly, this is white paint on a round brush, is because your arm and your hand have muscle memory. And as you circle out, you're capable, anyone's capable of making a better circle because you started small. Small circles are easier to draw, but big circles are hard, right? So if you start with a dot in the center and then circle out slowly, 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 just take your time and do it slowly, you can make a nice circle. It's easier than if you were to try to freehand one without doing it this way. And I'm going to just keep on doing it until it's the size. Now on your canvases, on a 12 by 16 canvas, it would be the size of a clementine or tangerine. On mine, because my canvas is a 16 by 20, I'm going to have to go for a small regular orange. But I'm just going to take my time and circle bigger and bigger. I'm just going to make sure you guys can hear me okay. Yeah, okay. I'm circling bigger and bigger until I get to, on my canvas, a small orange. On a smaller canvas, a clementine. Like a cookie. A small cookie, a regular size chocolate chip cookie for the center, something like that. Not the gigantic ones you buy at the mall. And then step back and eyeball your circle. If it's a little too farther over to the left, circle around a little bit more to the right. But step back. We can't see our things. We can't see what we're doing when our nose is right up in it. We just can't see it. And I'm doing this in white, and we're going to cover it with another color. But we want to go back to white so it's easy to paint the other color over it. It's like starting with a fresh canvas in the white spot. Step back and see if it looks like a circle, and remember where it doesn't, and you can fix it. If it looks lopsided, just kind of remember where it looks lopsided, then come back up in and look at it. When you see people painting on TV, like, you know, you'll see like a movie about artists or something, they're moving forward and back, and they're walking around, and they're holding up things to it to measure. Because you can see it better when you move around. Now, let's say you're a person, well, who doesn't have a plate and doesn't have this outer circle because you couldn't find a plate, or you're sitting outside on a or top of a mountain somewhere doing au naturel. I gotcha. I got your back. So what I'm going to do in that case is I'm going to take a measurement, and in this case I can take whatever you have laying around, okay? I'm going to take from this bottom of this ferrule to the top of my brush. Okay, that's not enough. So I'm going to need to go a little bit farther down, but I'm going to keep my thumb there. And if I have a little bit of white paint on my brush, on my tip, see that? I can hold my nail where the edge of that circle is. I'm not touching it. I don't want to put my hand in the painting, but I'm going to hover it right over there. I'm touching the rest of my painting with my finger, these fingers in dry areas just to hold my hand steady. But I can see how long that is. And then I can take it around to the other part of the circle and touch a dot around where that measurement is. 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 10 o'clock. No, 9 o'clock, my C's a little narrow there. But do you see those little dots? If I go around with that measurement from the side of my inner circle, then all I have to do is connect the dots. Now, the beautiful thing about this painting that Sam picked is that if your C is not perfect, it looks deliberate. Because it's a grungy, urban, edgy kind of painting. So if it's not perfect, it looks like you planned it that way. Cool. I'm going to put another dot, 2 o'clock on this little circle and 4 o'clock on this little circle, and then I'll connect them. And okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to make some gray, just straight on gray. Make sure your brush is clean, medium brush will work. And I'm just going to pick up a little bit of white and then a much smaller amount of black. Really, really so little. So let's say it's a pea, let's say it's a pinto bean of white and then 2 grains of rice black. Like so little black, it's ridiculous. Like a ladybug just walked through some mud and left it on your carpet. Just a little bit of gray, light gray. Because if it's light gray, it'll look like silver. And what we're going for is kind of this like earthy look. So I'm going to put it right over on my white and it's mixing with the white and it's looking silver. Yay. And I'm just filling in that white circle with my light gray, silvery color paint. My whole house is painted in this color, actually. It's called Ice Cube Silver. And if it's too light for you, then add a little bit of black. You can always make it darker. It's if you need it, but black is a powerful color, so just go easy at first and you can always adjust. Just know it will dry a little bit darker, just a little bit darker than when you first put it on, because it won't look wet anymore and water reflects light. And this one, it actually looks really streaky. I think she might have put some black in it first and put her silver over the black. So if you like that streaky look, go for it. Mine's smooth, hers is streaky. Her being the original artist, and you do you. I have a hard time making things look rugged and, so I'm just going to do me. So what I'm going to do is with the rest of my, I'm going to take a bunch of red, and this is the last step for my red, so I don't have to worry about it. I'm mixing in a little bit of yellow, and then I'm going to take some of that brown, one of your browns, pick one, and just mix in a little at a time with some red. What we're going for is like a wine color, like a burgundy, but with a little more yellow in it. So it's a little more coppery. So it's like a dirty orange is what we're going for. Have you ever heard of those fruits called blood oranges?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to make something that's kind of sort of copper color. With the emphasis on kind of sort of.
This is for the C.
This is for the C, yep. And so when Vanessa painted the original of this painting, her inspiration was nature. She wanted it to look like wood and like metal. So even if you don't get copper, maybe it'll look like red brick, which is a natural product. So that's the inspiration for this painting. And then once you get your red brick or copper, whatever color you want to call that, mixed, you can go ahead and fill it in. When I go to the lines, well, for this big part, I'm just going to use my medium brush for more coverage. But then when I get to the lines on it, for the fine lines, I'm going to use this really small, my smallest brush, to get the lines smooth on those sides. And these obviously are not the typical Colorado colors. If you don't like these colors, you can paint, if it's not too late, you can paint the inside yellow and you can paint the outside straight on red. That is definitely an option to make the true Colorado flag colors. This is just a variation. It's the same symbol. It's just a different color scheme. Someone was in here once and they turned this into the Cubs logo, Chicago Cubs. I thought that was interesting. But just go slow and careful near the edges and use the smallest brush you have. When you get to the edges, and you have to be careful. And this will probably take 2 coats of that color, unless you want it to look messy. And, that would kind of go with this painting. So you decide. And then actually the same thing is true. Like if you want to make this into the Cub symbol, you could also put the Chicago skyline instead of the Denver skyline. I don't know how to paint the Chicago skyline though. I only know how to paint the Denver skyline. So you'd have to look that one up. I think the best way to describe this color is rust. And when I'm using my fine brush, my little brush for details, I can steady my hand by putting my pinky out, and that just steadies my whole hand. Using my pinky like a tripod. I think it's amazing that we made all of these colors with red, blue, and yellow paint. You don't need 50 different colors. You just need the primaries and black and white, and you can paint almost anything. You can't paint neon, and you can't paint a true metallic, right? But other than that, you can mix any color with just red, blue, white, red, blue, yellow, black, and white. And I took a little class from a guy in Florida once, and he said, you don't even need black. He just uses 4 colors, because he would just take brown and add more blue and it becomes black. So amazing. He would paint these incredible, very detailed, very professional looking fine art things with 4 colors: red, blue, yellow, and white. And then he also never used straight on white in his paintings. He always made them off-white. Even for the whitest things. If he was painting an egg, he would still make it slightly off-white. And he said that's more realistic. Interesting guy.
That is interesting. I can say I'm learning a lot about colors.
Nice. Good. That's the whole idea. All right. We spent a lot of time on our wood, but I think that's really important. I think that for me, when I see a nice wood background on a painting, I'm impressed, because not everyone knows how to paint it. So yeah, I know we spent a lot of time on that wood, but I think you'll have, when you hang it in your house, people go, wow, is that wood? Did you do that? That's cool. So I'm going to let my first coat dry before I put a second coat on, because if I put a second coat on top of a first wet coat, I'll end up picking paint up and removing it rather than having it stay where it is. Because brushes can pick up paint or it can put it down. So what I'm going to do is my skyline is going to start from about, I'm going to have a line which is about, I would say 4:30 on the clock. If that's 4 o'clock, and this is 5 and that's 6, 5 and 6, it's about 4:30. And I'm going to, if I don't already have a line, a streak there, I can just take brown and make one. Don't use black. We don't want it to be too obvious we're using a line, but I just made a line there by just connecting what was already there, you know, and just filling it in a bit. So I have a brown line. Can't even tell that it's deliberate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my finest little brush And on top of that line, I'm going to put random size rectangles, but the tallest rectangle is going to be in the center. And I'm not going to worry about the tops of any of these buildings, not at all. I'm just going to.
What color?
Oh, thank you.
What
Small
color?
brush,
Oh, yeah.
small brush and black paint. The line was with brown, but now it's black. And I'm just going to make the tallest of my buildings in the center, more or less. And then I'm going to put other rectangles, different widths and shape and heights next to it. And I'm just going to try to vary them in size and shape a little bit. Maybe this one's a little wider. And you don't have to put them all, you know, at a distance, like a space in between. If you wanted, you could, you know, you could put them right up next to each other so they're touching. A lot of times skylines look like that from a distance. It's really your call. But I'm just going to, I'm going to connect these two because that looks like it's really downtown, right? So I'm going to put one there. And the key is just make them different widths and heights. And this is on the top of the line. The bottom of the line, we're going to do totally different. And we're not at all worried about, are those real buildings in Denver or what's next to it? We're just going to wait. What's going to make this Denver is the tops that we put on a couple of the buildings. That's how people will know that we're talking about Denver here. And I'm going to put a couple more on the other side. These are very sketched on, like a scribble. If you want it more edgy than this, then make them less perfect. And then I'm going to fill those in. And I'm not going to worry about perfection because none of this is supposed to look perfect. In fact, if it's too perfect looking, it won't be what we're going for. So don't worry about perfection here. Off to the sides, my buildings got a little shorter. Because that would be realistic, right? Downtown, nice and tall, and then maybe off to the side here, it's a little shorter. Connect them, don't connect them, doesn't matter. I'm going to give you time to do that, so don't worry. But I am going to go ahead and give a different instruction. I have to let that dry. I can't put my hands in all that right now. So I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna, since my silver in the center is dry, I'm just gonna go ahead and outline that because eventually I'm gonna need to outline the whole sea, inside and out. And I can set my, so whenever your painting is dry enough that you can do this, you can outline with your smallest brush and black paint.
Is that all black as well, the outline?
What's that?
Is the outline all black as well?
Yeah. And it's not perfect. She did not make it a perfect outline. It's kind of rough. But a small brush to do that. And I'm just doing that now because I have to wait a few minutes and I don't want to be doing too much over there and let it, and then stick my fist in a pile of black. This is where I love this painting because if you don't make the outline really solid and straight and perfect, it's even better. She actually even only has one iconic Denver building in there. Usually when we paint the skyline, we put a few, but she just put one and it's obvious it's Denver because of that one building. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the top of that building, just so I can make sure to get it in on time for anyone who's on a time schedule here. From my tallest building, I'm just going to go right up. I'm going to take my tiniest brush and I'm going to make a spire, a straight line, straight up from the top of that building. So it's about a third of the height of that building. And this is the beginning of when I make the cash register building. So it's right in half, right halfway across and then straight up. And I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to show you really close, okay? So from the top of that spire or line, I'm just going to curve down around, down from the back. And then I'm going to pull this across halfway to the other side. And then I'm going to curve down and meet that other side. So this is also a curve. And then I'll fill it in. And that's the cash register building, the top. So it's a curve, a tall curve, and then a shorter curve, and they meet in the middle. We're going to take a small brush with black paint. And now what I want you to notice is look at the reflection of the city. It's not a perfect reflection. It's just messy. Like this is not a perfect reflection of up here. And this is not perfectly reflected down here. And this, same thing. It just makes it a little edgier and messier that way. So we're gonna kind of, sort of, just put on whatever you want and just fill it in with a little black, but don't make it perfect. So we're gonna do this in black. And it's almost arbitrary what you put down below. And if you're a perfectionist, like I can be, it's gonna be a little bit hard. So I'm gonna have to really either have another drink or I'm gonna have to just move really fast so I don't freak out. So the first thing is we're just gonna put on some shapes down there that kind of sort of look like what's up above, but nowhere near a perfect reflection, nowhere. And then we're gonna drip it. That'll be fun. I think the key is for this bottom, move quickly. And if you drink, drink. And if you don't, it's okay, just relax and be messy. I can't even like not, I'm so used to drawing reflections, it's hard for me to not try to make that. Just think of it as it's not really a reflection, it's just going to be drips. The top part is what we want it to look like a skyline. The bottom doesn't matter at all. Because in a minute, we're going to make that a drippy mess. Thanks for your patience while those people were here. That breaks my heart when people get bad instructions.
Yeah.
After you get on the dripping or the whatever you threw on there, then add water to your black, like pull up some black paint. You don't have to use all of it, I guess, but mix some water into your black paint until you have like thick liquid, like Hershey's syrup. We don't want it to drip too fast and become just water, but we do want it to drip like pancake syrup. So I'm going to take that pancake syrup, black, it's not really pancake syrup, obviously, it's black paint that's really thin, and then I'm going to hold it, spin my brush, try to get a good drip going. And I want to make it drip from the bottom half of the painting. So mine is still too thick. We want a thick liquid, something that is going to drip. Come on, drippiness. Usually I don't want drip, so this painting is really strange, but fun. Come on, drip. If you want to do this over your sink, feel free. One time I made a painting when Prince died. I made a painting of Purple Rain and I did it in the sink. And I just, lots of rain. I can't believe how much water I have to mix to make this drip. Oh, I got a little now. Oh, you know what? Don't use all of your black quite yet. Save a little tiny bit of black if you have any left. I'll tell you why. We want a little tiny bit because I forgot to add a few squiggles up in the C. So if you still have any that's a little bit thicker, hold on to a little bit of that black, okay? Because that'll be our last step. Sorry, I forgot that. I'll just go ahead and show you. On the C, I did outline it, but then there's all these scribbles near the edges. She just literally scribbled in a few places, put some scribbles and some random dots just to mess it up. I have no idea why, but it looks cool, so I'll do it. Just some random scribbles. And then from this edge, she did some scribbles. Just makes it look a little more beat up, I guess. So that's what you needed the black for. And now we're just trying to make it drip. Make it rain. Come on, rain. We were so careful with everything else, and this part's so messy. And you can paint on a drip like that if you want. It's hard to make it go straight down, so letting it drip is, I think, better. She, meaning the original artist Vanessa, also put some scribbles next to this skyline and a little bit underneath the C. Just kind of scribble and sketchy, bringing together this whole skyline with the C. And there's even a couple of drips coming out from under the C.
Can you give tips for dripping again?
Sorry?
Can you go over how to like get it to like a good consistency for dripping again?
How to get it to be drippy?
Yeah.
So your paint just has to be really thin. Like the consistency of thin pancake syrup, not really thick stuff. I would say more like, it's almost like olive oil.
This is the hardest part.
This is kind of hard, but remember, the less perfect this looks, that's the whole idea, right? It's supposed to be edgy, right? You guys live, in a cool city and you live, you're not in the suburbs. This is supposed to look urban. This is not your mama's painting. Probably why I'm having a hard time with it, with this part. This is not painting little kitty cats. This is Vanessa, the original artist, is way cooler than me. And hopefully she'll come back and paint with us when we're open. When we reopen to inside classes. So when you get it to be like the consistency of olive oil, it works really well. I'm just loading my brush with it. See how thin that is? It's like literally like olive oil. And then I just set it on. But I really had to add a ton of water to get it to finally drip. And of course, you want to vary the size, the lengths of the drips. Maybe some will go all the way down, some will stop halfway. I have way too much drips on mine, but oh well. I wanted edgy, I got edgy. Once I got the hang of those drips, I actually had fun and put on too many. All right, I'm going to give you the last instruction, and that's basically you just sign your name at the bottom right-hand corner or wherever you want. And then someday when I see this in the Museum of Modern Art, I'll know exactly who you are. I want to thank you guys so much for painting with me tonight. I know this was kind of a different painting, and I hope you enjoyed it. And then tomorrow when you wake up, you'll see it with fresh eyes, and I think you're going to like it even more. I have never ended a painting with drips, so that kind of threw me. I don't know about you, that threw me a bit. But tomorrow I think you're going to wake up and you're going to think it's really cool.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks for teaching us.
You are so welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, Sam.
Thanks, Sam, for